So, how many of you have gone to a website and just rage with the website? Can I see a raise of your hands? Like you didn't like the website was slow. You felt like I don't want to use this website. So that's what we're going to talk about. Hi, I'm Abhishek Kaushik. We're going to talk about performance first development. Writing the performance code right from the start, not as an afterthought. In other words, we want to build fast websites from day one. Why it matters? First, business impact. If your website is slow, it affects your revenue, it affects your traffic, and it affects your SEO as well. And second, the user experience. The faster is your website, the higher conversion rates you get. User leaves the website if they feel any kind of friction. And third, competitive advantage. If your site is faster and your competitors isn't, you are already ready. Let's get deeper into business and UX impact. As we talk, poor performance leads to traffic and revenue loss. Because if your performance is lower, your core web vitals will be lower as well. And Google ranks your website based on your core web vitals like LCP, CLS, and TTF. Second is great performance, create trust and loyalty between users. User want to come back all the time if your website is more performant. And third, SEO ranking. As we talk about SEO rankings, like core web vitals are a really important piece of SEO rankings of your Google website. Then what is the difference between performance first and performance optimization? So think about building a house. What's the first thing you create or build when you build a house? You build the walls. You build a plain kind of foundation. But if you build the wrong walls and weaker walls, your house is not going to stay. That means we have to do a patchwork to finish our house. So that is the difference between performance first and performance optimization. When you do performance optimization, what you have to do is you have to do a lot of patchwork. It is time taking, it is costly, and often too late. We want to bring that in performance first rather than doing the patchwork afterwards. Because if you're not thinking about if you're not planning our architecture first, you would have to scramble for our fixes. So before we talk about principle of performance first development, I'd like to tell you a story. So I love writing well. And when I decided I want to come to Mokra for this thing, I decided I'm going to use my Mokra. I started planning a video. So I was planning to come on 12th. So I started planning a video. And I decided how many things I want to carry. First thing first, I decided how many days I'm going to stay. I wrote a hotel. Then I packed up my clothes, I cleaned up my writing gear, I did everything which I wanted to do, which I could do. The day when I started my write, I realized I used a lot of things. I forgot to check whether of Pokhara. Pokhara, it's already in conference season, and I forgot to pack my rain gear. And another thing, it's really hot in India. I didn't account for that much heat I'm gonna face. So why I'm telling you this? This is where planning becomes really important whenever you do, and especially performance first development as well. If I would have thought about and checked the program whether I would have gotten it, and now after this call, I have to scurry and go to the market and look for a coach because I need to write that now. And also, it is so hot right now in Goa, I could not ride my bike forward. So maybe the decision was choosing between car and a bike. Maybe I would have came with a car, but now I have to live with my decision. So that's the couple of mistakes which I've done. And now my ride is not as pleasurable as I thought. So first, let's talk about principle of performance first everything. We need to plan our architecture and design first thing first, like as soon as possible. Find your WordPress themes, find your stack, find your plugins, and make sure that you choose right stack and make the decisions early and make the smart decision as early as possible. Set your performance budget. And setting a performance budget means you are setting a performance budget for your core requirements. If your performance budget is 70%, if your core requirements are 70% or higher, you are already leaving your competition behind and they are already in for a uphill battle. And avoid technical steps. A short-term fix now will create problems later. Okay. Let's talk about some of the engineering practices you have to do. First, we'll talk about design images. So, design, as you know, most of our footfalls come from the mobile. So, try to have mobile first design as much as possible. Then think about responsive images. And when I'm talking about responsive images, I'm talking about try to have different images for different devices so that your images are also performant. If possible, use CDN. And try to use native lazy loading as much as possible. And if you can convert those images to WebP, that is the best. And look out for those hidden content and sliders. They create a lot of complexity in the performance. Second, we'll talk about CSS and JavaScript because they are one of the most impactful building blocks of a web development. Try to split your critical CSS. So what is critical CSS? Critical CSS is the CSS which needs to load it first before anything load. So if you're splitting critical CSS, the important thing is going to load above the fold. And if everything is, the important things are loading above the fold, your website is always faster. Try to use BEM or similar convention. What is BEM? BEM is a convention to write CSS, which is block, element, and modifier. And try to have a visual stability in your code, in your CSS code. When you use these kind of convention like BEM, your code is very stable and scalable as well. Now, what about JavaScript? Try to use vanilla.js as much as possible. It is really preferred. And try to split your vanilla.js as well. The code, the build which you are doing, try to split that as well. And try to use lazy loading as much as possible and avoid jQuery. And as we talked about setting a budget for your water items, you can set budget for your JS bundle sizes as well. Because when time goes, your bundle size also gets increases. Okay, what about third-party scripts and monitoring? Third-party scripts are really important part of any kind of website. Be really strict on what you want to add, what kind of third-party script you want to add to your website. Make sure that what you are adding is really important and you really need it. Do a regular audits of your third-party scripts and remove the unused ones. And if you have to use a third-party script, load the third-party scripts after everything loads. And try to monitor and log everything as well. We can use Lighthouse, web page test, and New Relic to do our monitoring. Because monitoring is really important. Because if we don't know what's the problem, we cannot solve the problem as well. So, how do you take these principles into our workflow and in our CI? Do a performance check in your CI/CD. There is a really easy way to set up Lighthouse CI to make sure you are always under your budget. Fail your bids when budget exceeds. Do a performance monitoring in the live environment. And I'm saying live environments, try to use real devices, real users, not just the staging environment or non-development environment. And third is the most important thing is educate everyone, the developers and the professionals. Remember, performance is not just engineering jobs. Engineering job, it is everyone's job to do that, right? From the product managers, designers, marketing teams, everyone. It needs to be a culture, not as a checklist. So what are the financial levels? We want to build performance from day one. We want to use lightweight themes and minimal plugins. Write the custom code where it matters. For example, if you want to use a plugin which serves your purpose, but it has a lot of bloated code, but it has a lot of things which you don't need. Need like a custom smaller plugin for yourself to solve that same purpose. And performance, and last performance is a feature. Deliver at its deliver as it is goes. Because if you don't treat performance as a feature, you will scramble for patchwork later when the website is released. Thank you. Now we open for Q&A. I have a question for you first. What takeaway you're going to take from here in your project so that your website is a performance first developer? Now we are open for questions. Any questions? If you have any questions, please do connect with me. I'll actually talk to you about what is performance. Thank you.